j'ai du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël.
Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So as I was preparing to record this video, Donald Trump just tweeted. He tweeted that he's being released from the hospital, he's feeling great. In fact, he feels 20 years younger, and nobody should worry about the coronavirus. I'm going to address that tweet at the end of this video, and I'm going to try not to lose my temper. We'll see how that goes. But let me start by saying that I don't believe anything that the White House alternate facts crew tells us, right? From the moment they tried to sell to us that Donald Trump had tested positive for the coronavirus, I'd been saying, please just give us one trusted public health official. Somebody credible, somebody whose word we can rely on. And if they say Trump's tested positive, I think we're all prepared to believe it. But I don't want to hear it from the alternate facts crew. I don't want to hear it from Kayleigh McEnany or Kellyanne Conway or Mark Meadows or Rudy Giuliani or Vladimir Putin, right, who wrote a beautiful get well letter to Donald Trump praising his, quote, innate vitality, good spirits, and optimism, close quote. That's the word we all associate with Donald Trump, right? Optimism, right? He's our daily dose of sunshine. All along I've been saying, can we please just have somebody credible, trustworthy, like Dr. Anthony Fauci, tell us, in fact, Donald Trump is positive? Well, Dr. Fauci has weighed in, and he weighed in with no comment. No comment? No comment is something you say when you can't say anything good. No comment is something you say when you can't say anything to reassure the American people that what we are being told about Donald Trump is truthful and accurate. No comment. Here's how that was reported today. The CNN headline, quote, Fauci says he has not been involved in Trump's care. The article reads in part, Dr. Anthony Fauci, the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, told CNN this morning that he has not been involved in the care of President Trump and declined to comment on the status of his condition. Quote, I have not been involved, but again, I don't want to get into talking about the president's case because that's not something that I really have been cleared to talk about. But personally, I have not been involved in the direct care of the president, Fauci said. So if we're looking at data points to try to figure out the true status of Donald Trump, I would put Dr. Fauci's no comment in the something's fishy column. What other data points do we have? Well, we have yesterday's, trip around the park. They loaded Donald Trump into the presidential limo so he could be driven around the park and wave at his supporters. Think about this. If Donald Trump is actually infected with the coronavirus, what did they do? They put him in a tightly enclosed space. No social distancing possible inside a vehicle. They put him in there with multiple Secret Service agents. Those agents were at imminent risk to become infected themselves if Donald Trump was truly infected. But to Donald Trump, what's a handful of infected Secret Service agents, when he wants to ride around the park and wave at his supporters? I would put that data point in the something's fishy column. What other data points do we have? Well, we have an incredible press conference being given by the White House physician, Dr. Connolly. When Dr. Connolly was pressed by the media about some inconsistent statements he had made, here is how Dr. Connolly responded. I'm going to quote his words verbatim. Quote, "I didn't want to give any information that might steer the course of the illness in another direction, and in doing so, it came off that we were trying to hide something which wasn't necessarily true." Okay, first of all, Doc, whatever you say or don't say, I promise you, it will not steer the illness in a different direction. The illness doesn't care what you have to say about it or about Donald Trump's circumstances. The illness is going to do what the illness is going to do. So that was nonsensical. That was babble. And then after that, he said, well, I thought that maybe the way it came off, people would think we were trying to hide something which wasn't necessarily true. So it wasn't necessarily true that you were trying to hide something, but it could have kind of sort of been true that you were trying to hide something. You got to take everything Dr. Connolly says and put it in the something is fishy column. And then worst of all, folks, just a little while ago, Donald Trump tweeted. Here's what he said. I'm sure you've seen it by now. Quote, "I will be leaving the great Walter Reed Medical Center today at 6:30 p.m. feeling really good. Don't be afraid of COVID. Don't let it dominate your life. We have developed, under the Trump administration, some really great drugs and knowledge. I feel better than I did 20 years ago. Don't let it dominate your life." I guess a narcissist doesn't understand how that statement lands with the families of more than 200,000 dead Americans. Don't let it dominate your life. I feel better than ever. How hurtful, how demeaning, how heartless, how callous is that tweet to the Americans who succumbed to the coronavirus, to their surviving, grieving family members, to the thousands and thousands of people who are struggling with it right now, hospitalized, on ventilators, clinging to life. Don't let it dominate your life. Not a big deal. I feel great. How does it land with the people who spent weeks or months fighting the virus and never recovered fully, are still suffering the consequences, the aftermath of the virus? He says he beat it in a matter of 3 or 4 days. He feels great. In fact, he feels 20 years younger. Folks, he's taking a page right out of the dictator's playbook, faking an illness, and then saying, I, your dear leader, am superhuman. You may struggle, you may die, you may take weeks or months to recover. I knocked it out in a few days. Folks, this is nothing but another big con, and there's only one thing left to do. Vote him out. In numbers too big to rig and too real to steal. And then, in January, investigate, indict, try, convict, and imprison. Fairly, ethically, apolitically. Donald Trump needs to land in the orange jumpsuit he has so richly earned. Please don't listen to Donald Trump, because it will not make you feel 20 years younger. It will ravage you, it will devastate you, it will hospitalize you, and as we know, it may kill you. Please stay safe, folks. Please stay safe. And I look forward to talking with you all tomorrow.
It is Tuesday, the 6th of October of 2020, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, Gunner, the English Bulldog. Yes, is our snoozing sous chef. And our daily special is Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays, a small scant dash. A mere pinch of hot, smoked Hungarian paprika will make all the difference in the world. And it always does, it always has, and it always will. Yeah, whole societies have hung in the balance in trying to acquire this great spice. Well, I want to know if there's hot Hungarian smoked paprika out in the stars. You know, the Nobel prizes are being disseminated or announced. Announced, yes. The science ones. Oh, God, I love this time of year. I don't know. It's really a toss-up between Benjamin Netanyahu and Trump for the Peace Prize now, isn't it? No, it's not. But if you listen to those two parties, yeah, you would think that would be. In fact, maybe they should win it together. Wow, what has the world come to? What has the world come to? Well, we get to have one of those Mussolini-type images. God, you know, no one uses the balcony at the White House like that. Never has. What's he up to? We know exactly what he's up to. And what he's up to is that he was having a hard time getting up those stairs. Yeah, he looked laboring, didn't he? Now, I know the right-wing outrage machine is probably in full gear right now. I've avoided it so far this morning. But I do know from yesterday, oh yeah, it's all of our fault. All of us, we're making mountains out of molehills. And anyway, he is Superman. Really? Is he? Don't worry, be happy. Death is a friend. Uh-huh. Don't let the COVID dominate your life. Make your own choice and die. What? You not only have to put on the special They Live sunglasses, you got to put on the special iTunes They Live head earbuds to hear what's really being said. For instance, the translation of Dr. Fauci's no comment, as Glenn Kirshner pointed out at the top, turned out to be, if you listen to Trump, you will not feel 20 years younger during a pandemic. You will die. Wow. And I just love how he says, oh, everybody's going to get the great drugs that I got. No, they're not. And how was it that you got them? Well, because he was on death's door. And everybody knows those kind of steroids make you feel so good you can walk to the morgue. So we'll find out if he's been cured. Maybe he's immune. As he says, maybe I'm immune. I don't know. Yeah, well, you know, this dexamethasone stuff, it does make you feel pretty strong. And it also makes you pretty angry. And it also makes you want to go out in the middle of the street and yell at the wires for whispering your secrets to the world. So, we are in deep trouble. We really are, and I don't think Mike Pence is up for the job. Maybe Mother is. Maybe Mother's the true power behind that dynamic duo. Oh, yes, she is. Everybody knows it. But still. Maybe Angela Lansbury can play her in the movie. You know, Angela Lansbury played the mom in The Manchurian Candidate. Just, little tidbit there. Yeah, well, maybe not. I don't think we're going to have any movies made, at least not for the big screen. They're shutting all the big screen movie theaters down. Well, you know what they should do is bring back the drive-in, and the drive-in is coming back. You can socially distance at a drive-in and keep yourself in a hermetically sealed vehicle so only you and your friends get whatever it is you got. And with the technology that we have now, the concession stand can deliver your concessions by drone. Just fly it right there, right to your window. Maybe even drop it next to your car. You reach out and put it in yourself. I don't know. Maybe this is a model that I should, maybe I will. No, I'm not the businessman. My Trump bro is. He's able to lie to people and part them with their money. I can't. I don't want to part with people's money anyway. If they would like to help Netroots Radio, that's another thing. But we try to keep the lemons out of the whole process here. We have no lemons at Netroots Radio, okay? Some really tart stories, though. That's a whole other matter. Well, damn. Texas is in a big trouble. We spoke about that yesterday. Looks like Abbott himself, the governor, is getting sued by not just voters, but all sorts of entities because he's only going to allow one ballot drop-off box per county. Per county. Texas is big. They always say Texas is big. I mean, you look at some big expanse in Alaska and Texas. Well, always say, that's just small change stuff. Everything's bigger in Texas, and those counties are big in landmass. They don't have as many people in them. That's how that works in Republican country. Lots of land, hardly any people, and the people that are there are pretty damn angry about everything because they don't know anything, and all that they hear is really bad out there. Wherever they're not, it's bad. And you don't want that coming to your place. Oh, no. Well, we have a couple of stories about, flyover country. Yeah. And the pushback against Republican efforts to, turn the United States into some proto-Nazi regime. My God. Oh, God. What is going to happen with this election? I don't even know what's going to happen with the vice presidential debate. Pence, getting back to that guy, was all upset because Kamala was going to bring a plexiglass screen, that just like that Jamie Harrison guy did with his debate with Lindsey. And I got to tell you, that spoke volumes, too. That looked pretty good. One guy who's concerned about not giving his family whatever it is that Lindsey caught at the White House versus Lindsey saying, I don't care. I don't care. Everybody hates me. Everybody hates me. I wonder why. Finally, Lindsey is speaking some truth. Everybody hates him. They do. And so we're going to see what that debate is going to turn out to be. The commission, when vice presidential candidate Harris said, I'm, plexiglass, they said, oh, yeah, deaf. And Mike goes, no, I've got this stuff and I'm supposed to spread it around. That's our prime directive. Because only Democrats and mud people get coronavirus, apparently. And if we get it, well, we're of the superior race, and slough it off. Don't let it dominate you. You dominate it. Isn't that the height of positive thinking? It's like a Monty Python sketch with a knight who keeps getting his appendages chopped off until he's just like a big stump, a finger. You're going to stop me. Come on back here. I'm fighting you. Red rum. Oh, my God. Mike Pence. Democrats and the GOP. Yeah. Now listen, we're not going to be a one-party system if it's only the Democrats left. I mean, we're already like a parliament. My God. To try to make the Democratic Party into a two-party system is going to be impossible. Jeez, we have a constellation of issues. And somehow we're able to consolidate all of that and speak with a pretty good, strong voice about equal protection and due process under law. All of it, indeed. Well, we need to go out in mass quantities and vote. Early if you can. I mean, people are voting right now, and they don't like it. They being you-know-who. Indeed, what's on the rest of the menu here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy? Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. Newly updated CDC guidance shows COVID can travel more than 6 feet indoors because it's aerosolized now. Well, we kind of knew that and suspected it. So there you go. The governor of Montana, speaking of flyover country, asked a federal court to block sweeping land use plans by Trump's unlawful acting public lands boss that was kicked out because he was unlawful in his acting capacity. And a federal judge blocked Iowa's GOP Secretary of State from enforcing an absentee ballot suppression directive. Well, we need some good news now, don't we? After the break, we move to the chef's table where Britain opened an investigation into its coronavirus test and trace glitch. Boris says it's the little people's fault. Indeed. And the World Health Organization reported 1 in 10 have caught COVID as the world heads into a difficult period. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. At the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, to the right-ish of the page is the chat room link, monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. To the leftish of the chat room link, which happens to be near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, you will then notice near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com is the link to our Patreon page. And, of course, that's there because, hey, we have to pay our bills. And how do we pay our bills? We pay it with money. We don't use like Bitcoin. We don't even use wooden planks of veneer like they did during the Depression in a little town in Washington State. Yeah, they made this little wood cash because they ran out of their bank closed. They had no currency, so they had to have wood planks. Little wooden veneer dollar-sized type script. We don't use that. We have to use legal tender. And you're responsible, and your generosity, your responsibility, and your generosity has allowed us to, pay our bills with legal tender so that we can fly under the radar, resist as the founders originally intended. Indeed, they did. If you could afford an espresso-type coffee drink, which we have some who have been doing this for quite a while, but if you, who are not doing so, are able to, in these perilous times, send us the funds from an espresso-type coffee drink once a month, we are able to stretch those dollars beyond compare, because I got to tell you, once you measure it, it really exists now, doesn't it? Well, anyway, we're quantum mechanics in stretching these dollars. I have mentioned before, especially now that the Nobel Science Prizes are being disseminated, we're able to stretch those dollars on the quantum level. We leave no strange quark unstretched. Nope, every single one. every filament that might be there. We're going to stretch it, because that's how we do it. We have to, because we've been doing this for almost 10 years. Why the hell aren't we like MSNBC? I don't know. Well, we are citizens radio, and that's what it really gets down to. If we were corporate radio, it would be a little bit different now. Anyway, thank you to those who have been so generous, and thank you to those of you in advance for extending your generosity. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, it is so simple. Tom takes care of it, and Tom did it. He got Netroots Radio at Netroots Radio. Thank you, Tom. You can follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam. I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Kos while I still can. Who knows what's going on with Daily Kos now? Anyway, we are in a quest to find more and better Democrats and get them elected. That's our prime directive. Anyway, I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Kos about 10 minutes before showtime. Get that linked up on social media, and that's how we do it. If you would like to follow the show on Twitter, do so at Cookbook West, and pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, and wherever podcasts can be found. I'm going to do the Amazon and Audible. Yeah, they're both together. See if we can get okayed on there. I've been a little lax in getting that application submitted, but I will. Anyway, let's dive into this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. It's out of the Associated Press by Mike Stobbe. The top U.S. public health agency said yesterday, Monday, that the coronavirus can spread more than 6 feet through the air, especially in poorly ventilated and enclosed spaces, but agency officials maintain that such spread is uncommon and current social distancing guidelines still make sense. Doesn't that sound like it had to go through some kind of review by a, specific infected leader of the free world? I wonder. Well, several experts faulted the updated Centers for Disease Control and Prevention guidance. They said the virus can spread more easily than the CDC seems to be indicating, and suggested that the public should wear masks, even in prolonged outdoor gatherings, when they are more than 6 feet apart. Don't rip off your mask like Donald did on the balcony. The virus is traveling through the air, and there is no bright line. You're not safe beyond 6 feet. You cannot take your mask off at 6 feet. Dr. Donald Milton of the University of Maryland School of Public Health said, for months, the CDC has said that the virus spreads mainly through small airborne droplets when an infected person coughs or sneezes. But most CDC guidance about social distancing is built around the idea saying that 6 feet is a safe buffer between people who are not wearing masks. In interviews, CDC officials have also acknowledged growing evidence that the virus can sometimes spread on even smaller particles called aerosols that spread over a wider area. You know, like when you sneeze. They're not droplets. They're much smaller than droplets, please. In the update posted on its website, the agency again acknowledged recent research showing that people with COVID-19 infected others who were more than 6 feet away or shortly after an infected person left the area. That's scary. CDC officials called those limited uncommon circumstances. That's a nice way of putting it. I don't think Dr. Fauci okayed it. In those cases, spread occurred in poorly ventilated and enclosed spaces where people were doing activities that caused heavier breathing, like singing or exercise. Wow. Exercise outside. People can protect themselves by staying at least 6 feet away from others, wearing a mask, washing their hands, cleaning touch surfaces, and staying home when sick. Last month, the CDC ignited controversy among experts when it quietly posted an update that seemed to suggest the agency's position had changed, and then within days took it down again because Donald Trump didn't want people in his base to think it was being transmitted in an aerosol fashion, even though he's on tape with Woodward admitting, well, yeah, it goes through the air. That's what makes it so scary. The short-lived post said the virus can remain suspended in the air and drift more than 6 feet, and officials emphasized the importance of indoor ventilation. It also added singing and breathing to the ways the virus can go airborne, and Donald Trump wanted to keep that secret even though the secret was out? Is that pathological? What is the term for that? Federal health officials later said the post was a mistake and it had been released before full editing and clearance was completed, obviously. They said there was no major change in the agency's position, but they would finalize a post to clarify the CD's thinking, and that's what was posted on Monday, yesterday. A small group of researchers, including Milton, published a letter in the journal Science that called for clearer public health guidance about how coronavirus spreads in the air. They said health officials need to use clearer language in talking about the size of airborne particles and droplets that can spread the disease, and be more straightforward about the role that viruses and small aerosols can play in infecting people. Masks and good ventilation are crucial indoors, but they can be important outdoors too. Which is, I have to say, I often take my mask off when I'm outdoors. But have you ever smelled someone's cigarette from around a corner? Maybe we should be wearing masks outside all the time now. Brown from the AP brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The governor of Montana yesterday, Monday, asked a judge to block 3 sweeping land use plans that would open most U.S.-owned lands in the state to energy development, saying the documents were invalidated when the Trump administration's public land boss was removed for being in the post unlawfully. A judge last month, as reported here at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, ousted Bureau of Land Management Deputy Director William Perry Pendley from his post as acting director, where he had been for more than a year without a confirmation vote from the U.S. Senate to lead the agency as required under the Constitution. The ruling, in a lawsuit brought by Montana Governor Steve Bullock, marked a stinging rebuke against the Trump administration's practice of keeping unconfirmed officials in some key leadership posts by issuing them repeated temporary authorizations. Administration officials rejected the claim that Pendley had illegally led the Bureau and said yesterday, Monday, they would ask the court to leave in place any decisions made under his watch. Well, excuse me, the court already decided. It ruled. Bullock, a Democrat, told the AP in an interview that all actions undertaken during Pendley's 424 days atop the agency are now subject to legal challenge. Those include oil and gas leasing decisions in Montana and other states, and, potentially, a reorganization of the Bureau under Donald Trump that shifted some of its operations to western states, according to legal filings from Bullock's attorneys. But Bullock said he was contesting only actions that directly affect Montana, leaving it to other states or conservation groups to challenge any additional work or decisions made under Pendley's watch. The agency oversees almost 250 million acres of land, primarily in the U.S. West. Pendley, a former oil industry and property rights attorney from Wyoming, had called for selling off public lands until he joined the administration and disavowed that stance. He helped usher the Land Bureau through a series of moves that eased rules for industry, but had seen major pushback from federal judges. Under his oversight, federal officials rejected concerns raised by Montana residents and officials over the amount of land that could be subject to drilling and the elimination of conservation protections under newly adopted land use plans for much of eastern, central, and western Montana. Certainly, there's going to be resource development, but let's actually listen to the people on the ground along the way, Bullock said. This ought to be very public, a bottom-up driven process, but that's not how it works in this administration. When Donald Trump wants something, Donald Trump gets it. Conservationists who challenged Penley's legitimacy in a separate lawsuit from Bullock's are also seeking to oust Margaret Everson, the top official at the National Park Service, on similar grounds. Eric Mulvar with the Western Watersheds Project, one of the plaintiffs in the case, said any decisions made by Everson or others who served temporarily in the same role could fall under the same cloud that now hangs over Penley's actions. If an employee is illegally serving and illegally directing an agency and has been involved in decisions that have no legal authority to make, the validity of those decisions is deeply in question. Well, common sense says that now, doesn't it? Foley, also of the Associated Press, brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. A judge blocked Iowa Secretary of State from enforcing an order that barred counties from sending absentee ballot applications to voters with their personal information already filled in. No, don't do that. Don't make it easy. Judge Robert Hansen sided with Democratic Party groups who contended that Secretary of State Paul Pate exceeded his authority when he told counties that absentee ballot request forms must be blank when mailed to voters. Hansen ordered Pate to halt enforcement of his directive, which the judge said appeared designed to limit access to absentee voting. Oh, you mean voter suppression? Local election officials said they were studying the ruling to determine the impact, including whether they could take steps to mail ballots to thousands of voters whose requests were previously invalidated based on Pate's directive. Indeed. All right, let's get to our break, and when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Christopher Intagliata. Greenland is the biggest island in the world, and the ice sheet that sits atop it is massive.
The pile of ice is so thick that it extends more than 10,000 feet above the ocean. And if all that ice were to melt and go into the ocean, global sea levels would rise by 24 feet everywhere around the world.
Jason Briner, a geologist at the University at Buffalo. The ice sheet is melting, of course, but just how much compared to the past? Briner's team did a computer simulation of the southwest portion of the Greenland ice sheet, which he says is a pretty good proxy for ice melt across the entire ice sheet. The researchers plugged past climate data into that model to hindcast, rather than forecast, the past activity of the ice sheet, and they then checked the model's predictions of the past shape and size of the ice by looking at piles of rocks and boulders and dirt on Greenland today, which outline the edges of ancient ice. And the simulation was in good agreement with the actual situation. Using that reconstruction of the ice sheet over time, the team could then compare the ice sheet's historic losses to those happening today under human-caused global warming, and they determined that Greenland is on track to lose more ice this century than during any century in the past 12,000 years, possibly 4 times as much ice. The results appear in the journal Nature. Ultimately, it's up to us how much ice actually melts.
Humanity has the knob, the carbon knob, and that knob is going to influence the rates of ice loss from the Greenland ice sheet.
If the world goes net carbon zero by 2100, for example, Briner says ice loss could stop entirely at the end of the century, according to one model.
That was what kept me from being completely depressed about our study.
Dozens of countries have already announced goals to go net zero by the middle of this century. So far, the U.S. is not one of them. Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Christopher Intagliata.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Colorectal cancer is the number 2 cancer killer of men and women in the United States, but it is preventable. Early on, colorectal cancer typically has no symptoms. It starts with a precancerous polyp or abnormal growth in the colon, which can be removed without surgery. Several tests are available to find these polyps, so they can be removed before they turn into cancer. Screening also finds colorectal cancer early when treatment works best. Recommended screening for adults at average risk begins at age 50 and continues until age 75. Learn about screening test options and find out which tests are covered by insurance. Talk to your healthcare provider about when you should be screened and discuss the best tests for you. For more information about colorectal cancer prevention, please visit cdc.gov/vital signs.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Hi, it's Tom. Could we humbly suggest your donation to netrootsradio.com? All we've got to run this 24-hour powerhouse of progressive resistance radio is what comes out of our own wallets. And you are our biggest donor. And it doesn't take much, $3, $5. Just go to the bottom of our netrootsradio.com page and hit our secure donate button. Heck, you can even make a recurring contribution, and you'll get a wondiferous pair of Netroots radio stickers for application to your backpack, your bumper sticker, or your banjo. Well, it's up to you which backpack you want to put it on. So donate what you'd like at the bottom of our netrootsradio.com's homepage, because you are our biggest donor. netrootsradio.com. Together, we are Resistance Radio.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1945. That was a day known in Hollywood as Black Friday. After World War II, the movie industry began to rake in profits. But they did not pass those profits along to their employees. 10,000 members of the Conference of Studio Unions were on strike. They were part of the Brotherhood of Carpenters and Joiners. They were also in a jurisdictional battle with the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, or IATSE, over who should represent stage decorators. The strike wore on for half a year. The studios had more than 100 films backlogged and were able to wait out the strikers. But as the strike continued and the studios remained silent, pressure mounted. Despite the tensions between the two unions, thousands of IATSE members refused to cross the picket lines. On Black Friday, the strikers decided to concentrate their efforts at the Warner Brothers Studios gate. 300 picketers gathered to hold the line. Scabs, hired by Warner Brothers, tried to drive through the workers' picket lines to the studio. Variety accounted what happened next, writing, quote, "Strikers deployed from their barricades, halted non-strikers, and rolled 3 automobiles on their sides. By noon, reinforcements arrived from both sides. Firemen were called in to turn their hoses on the striking workers. Warner Brothers security deployed tear gas. Common for the time, accusations were hurled that the Conference of Studio Union strikers were communists. As a result of the strike, the Conference of Studio Union's employees were assigned to other jobs in the studios. When they refused, they were locked out. The union never recovered. The violence at the Warner Brothers Studios gate also helped to fuel the passage of the Taft-Hartley Act through Congress, which eroded union protections. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
I read the news today, oh boy.
It's time for Nicole Sandler's What's News from NicoleSandler.com and the Progressive Voices Network.
To be honest with you,
sure, I want you to.
I wanted to always play it down. I still like playing it down.
Yes, sir.
Because I don't want to create a panic.
Well, I didn't downplay it. I actually, in many ways, I upplayed it in terms of action. My action was very strong.
This time, there's no question. Donald Trump is intentionally downplaying the threat from the coronavirus. Trump was discharged from the Walter Reed Medical Center late Monday to continue his treatment for COVID-19 at the White House, despite grave concerns over his health and a warning from his doctor, Sean Conley.
He may not entirely be out of the woods yet.
To recap, Trump was hospitalized through the weekend after announcing Friday that he had tested positive for coronavirus. He underwent 3 strong treatments, including an experimental antibody cocktail, and his doctor said the president wouldn't be out of the woods for a week. Infectious disease experts expressed alarm that Trump's illness had not caused him to be more realistic about the threat of the pandemic, which has killed more than 210,000 people in the U.S. alone. In fact, Trump seems bound and determined to keep lying about the virus to the American people. Upon arriving at the White House, he staged a photo op, which was quickly turned around into a few promotional campaign videos. He walked up the stairs, stood on the balcony, and almost immediately removed his mask, despite the fact that he was surrounded by a lot of masked staffers and photographers scrambling to get the photo from the photo op. Earlier in the day, in a tweet announcing his upcoming departure from Walter Reed, Trump went on to proclaim, quote, "Feeling really good. Don't be afraid of COVID. Don't let it dominate your life. We have developed under the Trump administration some really great drugs and knowledge. I feel better than I did 20 years ago." Hey, Donald, that's from the steroids. Yeah, as of Monday, Trump was still on dexamethasone, a powerful steroid, usually reserved for only the sickest COVID patients. He's also set to receive another round of remdesivir on Tuesday. Joe Biden participated in an NBC town hall in Miami Monday night. Of Trump's stunt, Biden had some concerns.
The only thing I heard was one of the tweets saying that don't be so concerned about all this, essentially. There's a lot to be concerned about. 210,000 people have died. You have, about 1,000 people a day getting the coronavirus, 50,000 a week. I mean, so it's a great concern. I hope no one walks away with the message thinking that it is not a problem. It's a serious problem. It's a international pandemic, and we have 4% of the population and 20% of the deaths.
Now, you may recall about 2 weeks ago, the FDA proposed new stricter guidelines for emergency approval of a vaccine with a new recommendation that clinical trial volunteers be followed for a median of 2 months after the final dose before any authorization is granted. That would ensure the vaccine would not be approved before Election Day. Now, the New York Times is reporting that White House officials are blocking the new guidelines and refusing to allow the FDA to release them, thereby undercutting the government's efforts to reassure the public that any vaccine would be safe and effective. And the CDC has finally updated its guidance to clarify that COVID-19 can spread by airborne transmission as well as by close contact. Now, the White House will not say how many staffers have tested positive for COVID-19. According to White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany, that's because of privacy concerns. But on Monday, McEnany admitted that she'd become the latest Trump aide to test positive. And despite almost daily disclosures of new coronavirus infections among Trump's closest associates, the White House is making little to no effort to investigate the scope and source of the outbreak. The New York Times is reporting that medical experts now say it's highly likely that Trump and at least 7 others became infected at that September 26th reception for Supreme Court nominee Amy Coney Barrett. But the White House has decided not to trace the context of the gathered guests and staff, even though it was likely a super spreader event. And finally, after a brief pause to remember the late liberal Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, like clockwork, the Supreme Court started its new term on the first Monday in October, and there were ominous signs right from the beginning. Justices Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito attacked the Obergefell ruling that made same-sex marriage legal nationally. Thomas said the decision lets courts and governments, quote, brand religious adherents who believe that marriage is between one man and one woman as bigots. Well, if the shoe fits. The statement underscored the shift to the right the court will make if Trump's nominee to replace Ginsburg is confirmed. And the new 5-3 court wasted no time in ruling in favor of a restrictive Republican-backed law in South Carolina requiring voters to have a witness sign mail-in ballots, ruling that that law will be in place for the November 3rd election. The court did say that ballots already sent would not have to comply with the signature requirement. No, this is a tactic designed to suppress the vote of those who have yet to mail in their ballots. Just saying. And that's just a bit of what's news for now. I'm Nicole Sandler. If you appreciate these reports and the Nicole Sandler Show, I hope you'll consider making a contribution. My work is 100% listener supported, and I can't do it without your help. Find out more at NicoleSandler.com, and please click on that donate button.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. We always begin, whether from around the world, along the banks of the Rogue River and the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon, on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 51 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting a high of nearly the same as yesterday, about 88 or so. Partly cloudy skies, and winds will be light and variable. Clear skies overnight with lows in the low 50s. Winds will remain light and variable, mainly sunny tomorrow. Highs in the mid-80s, and winds will remain light and variable. Though I will say that we do have about 3/4 of an inch of rain expecting starting on Friday in the middle of the day. So we keep our fingers crossed for that. Confirmed coronavirus cases in Jackson County in the southern part of Oregon are now at 1,267 with 6 deceased. And we're having arguments from the COVID deniers. Yes, there are still those who say, 6 dead, that's not a big number. Yeah, what if it was one of yours? Air quality, ragweed pollen is high outside the window here at the mothership proper, and the air quality index for the region is moderate at 64 parts per million, and the daytime UV index is moderate also at 4. Barometric pressure is holding steady at 30.05 inches. Visibility is at 8 miles, and relative humidity is at 86%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. London is 60 and mostly cloudy. Paris is 60 and cloudy. Rome is 74 and sunny. Kyiv is 62 and partly cloudy. Kabul is 65 and clear. Hong Kong is 75 and partly cloudy. Tokyo is 66 and mostly cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 62 and cloudy. San Francisco, California is 50 degrees and partly cloudy. And New York is 65 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property. And these people positively live around the world. Anonymous worker bees at Reuters bring us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Britain's government has launched an investigation into why a technical issue with its test and trace program had not been identified sooner. Britain reported a jump in COVID-19 cases after a technical issue meant that more than 15,000 test results had not been transferred into computer systems on time, including for contact tracers, a response that is seen as key to control the virus. There was a technical issue in the process that transfers positive test results into reporting dashboards that was resolved, and all of the cases have been fed into the contact tracing system, a spokesman said, adding that additional contact tracers were being used. An investigation is underway to determine why the issue was not identified sooner.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Even more anonymous worker bees at Reuters bring us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Roughly 1 in 10 people may have been infected with coronavirus, leaving the vast majority of the world's population vulnerable to the COVID-19 disease it causes, the World Health Organization said. Mike Ryan, the WHO's top emergency expert, was addressing the agency's executive board, where the U.S. made a thinly veiled swipe at China for what it called a failure to provide accurate and timely information on the outbreak. Ryan said that outbreaks were surging in parts of Southeast Asia and that cases and deaths were on the rise in parts of Europe and the Eastern Mediterranean region. Our current best estimates tell us about 10% of the global population may have been infected by this virus. It varies depending on country. It varies from urban to rural. It varies depending on groups. But what it does mean is that the vast majority of the world remains at risk. Ryan said, "We are now heading into a difficult period. The disease continues to spread." Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day. But you do know Netroots Radio will broadcast on, and we're going to meet up tomorrow for Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we'll meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. De novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.